Angela. I took a class out at ESSA a few years ago in alcohol inks and absolutely fell in love with the medium. I thought it'd be fun to take a few minutes today to go over a few basic techniques and help get you started on a creative adventure in this versatile medium. You don't need a lot to get started. You need a few colors of alcohol inks, 91% isopropyl alcohol, and a non-porous surface. Today, we'll be using Yucco paper. Lastly, but probably most importantly, you need a well-ventilated space. As you can imagine, using a lot of alcohol, the fumes can become quite overpowering. So you want to make sure you have a space that has plenty of airflow. Open some windows, open the door, whatever you need to do to make sure that you have plenty of circulation, because we want this to be fun. We don't want to have a headache when it's all done because we didn't plan ahead. So, to get started, we're just going to go over and see how the ink reacts with the alcohol. So I've got my alcohol and I've got my inks. Today, I'm going to be using a few colors from Pinta by Jacquard. I've got Senorita Magenta, Sunshine Yellow, and Baja Blue. These colors are so bright and colorful. They really make me think about the spring flowers that are beginning to bloom, and they're just awfully cheery. So first, let's just drop some alcohol. Now we're going to drop some ink into the alcohol and see what it does. As you can see, the ink is beginning to bloom and spread into the alcohol that we dropped it in. Now this is going to continue to move as long as it's wet. So while it's doing its thing over here, let's come over to this corner and let's drop some ink and then drop some alcohol into that ink and see how it reacts differently. Now as you can see over here, where we dropped the alcohol first and then dropped the ink, we've got more saturation of color in the middle where the ink dropped. And it's kind of spreading out into the alcohol, and it's going to be a little blurry around the edges. Whereas over here, when we drop the ink and then drop the alcohol into it and stuff, dropping the alcohol into the ink really pushes the ink out, and it fills the entire surface of where the alcohol ink is at. And it's really a little bit more evenly colored. It's a little bit lighter in the middle where the alcohol dropped. Now, down here, we're going to drop them both at the same time and see what happens. Now, when I was doing this, I put a little bit more force behind the dropper because I really wanted to get it to move. You can see we're going to have a lot more movement and a little bit more excitement going on down here. You can use this medium like you would watercolor or some other kind of medium. If you've got paintbrushes and stuff, and use that to apply it. I've got my handy dandy little spray bottle here with alcohol, so I'm just going to spray some on the surface. I've got my paintbrush, and I've got some ink. You can drop the ink onto the paintbrush, you can have it in a little dish like you would with watercolors, or you can just drop it on the paper and then use your brush to move it around. Now I don't have anything in particular in mind for this today, I'm just showing you that you can use a brush to move it around and get some texture in the ink. Now normally I would be listening to a lot of music while I'm doing this, but the budget for today's video doesn't include paying for music, so we don't have any going on. Now you can continue to work these and move them around and stuff until the ink dries. It's going to take a little bit for all that alcohol to dry. But you can see the difference in the techniques. It's all giving us kind of similar results since we use the same color. But here you've got a high saturation of color in the middle of the alcohol when we drop the alcohol and then the ink. Here, when we drop the ink and then the alcohol, it's almost the reverse effect. We've got more saturation of color around the outside and a little bit lighter spot in the middle where we dropped the alcohol. And then when we dropped them together, it's just kind of got a lot of movement, a lot of blurring and stuff going on. And we got some texture over here with our brush. Now, if you're using paintbrushes with alcohol inks, you're going to want to use alcohol to clean your brush to get the ink out. After you do that, you're going to want to make sure that you really take good care of your brushes. Clean them with a mild soap and condition them to kind of counterbalance the drying effect that the alcohol will have on those bristles. Now, I would encourage you to just kind of play with this for a little bit, drop in some alcohol, drop in some ink, drop in multiple colors, and just seeing how they interact. While this is drying, I'm going to set it aside, and then I'm going to pull out another piece, and we're going to play with moving the inks around using some air. You can use a straw, you could use a hairdryer. Today I have a heat gun that I'm going to be using. I'm going to put some alcohol down here. I'm going to start off with some of my sunshine yellow. Move it around and see what we get. Just with one color, we're already getting a lot of movement going on and stuff. If that's not enough, let's just go ahead and add some more over here and see what happens. Let's go with the Senorita Magenta. Now, when you're doing this at home, you're not going to be thinking about whether or not the heat gun's blocking the shot from the camera or not, so you don't have to worry about that. You can just go with it and see what happens. Come up here and put some of my Baja Blue up here in the corner. And then move that around and see what we're getting. We're getting a lot of blending going on with the colors and stuff. I think I want a little bit more going on down here, so I'm just going to put some more alcohol. I'm not really dropping a lot of ink at this stage. I just want to give it a second, let it reawaken those alcohols, and then let's move it around some more. You're also gonna, well, I did have a rag in my pocket, but it's gone, so I'll just deal with having ink on my hands. It's handy to keep one of those around because it's inevitable that you're gonna get this stuff on you. As you can see, we're getting a lot of movement and stuff going on in the ink. Now, I could sit here and play with this stuff for hours, but we don't really have that much time today. So I think this will give you a good idea of how you can use the air to move the ink around and kind of use it to blend and get some variations in the color to start working with creating a piece of art. Once you start doing this, you can see, I'll show you a couple pieces that I've done, give you an idea of what kinds of things are possible in using this medium. This is one of the first earlier pieces that I did. So with this one, I used a hairdryer to move the ink around and give this kind of cloud effect in the background, and then I came back using paintbrushes and Q-tips and just dropping the ink to get the dots and the specks and stuff to make it look like these bubbles are coming out of the cloud. With this one, I was kind of working with the metallics to see how they would interact with the medium. The colors really pop on this one, and the metallics that I used makes it look like there's a lot more movement going on in it, so that was a lot of fun to play with. And then with this one, I really did a lot of layering. I've used a lot of different techniques, just layering them in there. I used a hairdryer to move the ink around. I used movement when dropping the inks, and I used the metallics to kind of emphasize that movement. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I hope you had fun. I sure did.